Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from whichever part of the world you are logging in and viewing this particular session. Just to kind of take a step back and give a perspective of what the analysts and what the consultants are saying. From a pure return to work standpoint, obviously there's going to be a significant increase in uh, professionals, practitioners, workmen, customers, clients, and all coming back to work, and the numbers expected to kind of go up to as high as 88% by the end of December. While this is global numbers, I think from an APAC standpoint, depending on which country you are in, I expect the range to be anywhere between upwards of 45 to 50% to as high as 90%, depending on the impact of COVID and the lockdown that the local regulatory authorities have imposed for that. Uh, what we are seeing is also as a differentiation now. Companies are trying to highlight the safety measures that they are put in place to give comfort to both their staff and the clients, and that is essentially one of the barriers they're trying to overcome in this journey out there. The second element, what you're seeing from a deployment standpoint, is to also include and involve and engage the workmen, professionals, and clients in the part of the process, so that it is not only talked about being safe, but also being demonstrated and participated by each one of them to show the robustness of this whole process out there. So engaging the workmen and professionals and employees is becoming a very critical element to succeed in this particular endeavor as we speak. Just to kind of move on from a solution standpoint, therefore, what are we seeing? The use cases obviously span quite a bit, and as you can imagine, this is a mix of device hardware technologies coming into bear with connected solutions like IoT, with the use of analytics, and that is what is being presented back from a dashboarding standpoint. You will finally broadly able to categorize some of these use cases. And again, to kind of give a perspective, it is extremely important that we are able to drive a behavioral change in this. What we are seeing is as workmen, as professionals get back to work, there is a very strong tendency to potentially go back to the preset norms of getting into a group, um, potentially, I mean, subconsciously or consciously, even breaking the social distancing norm, and so on and so forth. So behavioral change is something becoming very critical, and we believe that this particular solution that is available will help the supervisors, management drive and enable the workmen to adopt the new ways of working. This becomes a bit of a conscious intervention for them to be aware of and therefore take necessary corrective actions out there. So you look at, therefore, that is where use cases like density and distance tracking comes in place, looking at the health and wellness of employees, limiting the number of employees at a particular place are becoming critical elements of the whole solution out there. In the isolation zone, this is very clearly, there is potentially either a case that has been detected in that area or purely from a no limit zone where there are alarms and triggers set up if in the event there's a violation out there. We also kind of trying to see from a crowd avoidance standpoint, because there's obviously depending on the times of the day, you will find the people in together at one point of time, and that is becoming extremely critical to avoid. And therefore these kind of triggers come in that kind of management. Therefore, people are able to intervene. Supervisors are able to take actions to avoid that kind of situation out there. Besides that, it is also about the solutions provided, as we have seen, monitoring temperature and ensuring that the face masks have been rightly worn by the respective professionals out there. And finally, in the event of a situation where somebody is tested positive, I think the question is how do we kind of go back and do a effective contact tracing and enable effective isolation of the workmen who have potentially come in contact with the COVID positive person out here in this case. So that is the gamut that we are seeing out here. So two or three learnings that we are seeing. A solution that will drive a potential behavioral change and a shift with using some of these tracking and enabling devices and reporting mechanisms. Second, enabling the effective use of assets and the locational limitations that is required in such situations to be effectively leveraged per se out there. If I were to kind of move on, this is just a broad situation from landscape from an architectural standpoint. From an architectural view of the solution, it's a very simple, non-technical view. I mean, there's data being captured right at the edge from a camera and optical analytics standpoint, which the supervisor can, security officer can view and ensure monitoring of body temperature and so on and so forth. Besides that, this data being transformed to the IoT platform, which also has the inbuilt analytical models and exceptional information available to trigger off the right alerts, the dashboards, and give real-time capabilities for the site worker, the supervisor, and managements to take actions on a real-time basis out there. I'll just talk about 3 examples. One is from a logistics provider where the workmen are actually given mobile, the tracking devices or dongles as they called, to help enable beacons to help them track body parameters, their movement around, giving alerts on terms of their worker, the physical conditions, giving them proximity alerts, and also being a good guidance for them in terms of when is a break required from a fatigue monitoring standpoint out there. In the case of a steel manufacturer, using this solution to track wearables to monitor health conditions, looking at the right use of helmets, safety vests, and also looking at proximity sensors to avoid collision and so on and so forth out there. As you can imagine, I mean, these kind of solutions are also being now used in the case of smarter plants and with high security zones coming in out there. And if you just pan the bottom of the chart, you will find the various use cases that I just alluded to in the previous chart coming to bear in these particular client examples that I'm talking about. In a recent engagement that is currently on, and we're pretty much more or less done with the first phase of it, is where we are using this solution to provide the social distancing alert, contact tracing, and cluster detection for the ground staff for a major American airlines company. Obviously, this is to kind of demonstrate the robustness and the effectiveness of the solution, both for the workmen and for potential customers who eventually will be using the premises, as we are all kind of looking forward to get back to our aircrafts and get moving across the globe out there. This is obviously also integrated, and this is being a first phase being a pilot, will then be used as a stepping stone for the managements to take corrective actions, both from a security asset optimization and from a safety standpoint out there. Just to kind of take a slight detour from a IoT standpoint, and what we're also seeing is if you end up anyway wiring up the front end of the premises, and you're also wiring up some of the heavy equipments, energy consumption guzzlers at the stores, at the office premises. For a large retail store, what we are seeing is with this collection of this kind of data, leveraging the ambient temperatures within the store, looking at weather data, etc., and by the use of analytics, we're able to kind of deliver back close to 7 to 10% of energy savings every month through the use of connected solutions in this particular case. And just to kind of give an example of not only our IoT solutions available from a safety security perspective, but also from a cost reduction standpoint that companies are leveraging out here. Just to sum it up, I mean, there's obviously a fair amount of client examples that I can talk about across the industry. But I think what I'm seeing is with the plethora of devices that is coming into our day-to-day lives, connected solutions are becoming fairly pervasive, both from a business model transformation and also provide cross-industry integration as we kind of embark on this journey.